Hi guys! Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a first time buyers Q&A. Some of our friends and family have asked some questions since we bought the house, so we hope you find it informative and we hope you enjoy.
So the first question we got was, what were the first steps you took before you bought your house? So the first steps we took was finding out how much we could actually borrow in terms of a mortgage. So we went onto Money Saving Expert's website and we went to the mortgage calculator and we put in our annual income, and that told us how much we could borrow as a rough estimate. The second thing that we did was look at mortgages. So we went onto mortgage comparison websites and we had a look at different mortgages from different mortgage lenders and had a look at the monthly repayment amount to check that we would be able to keep up with the repayments. And also we figured out whether we wanted a fixed rate or a variable rate. We went for a fixed rate and we also decided to go for a 5-year fix just because when we applied for the mortgage it was during COVID and interest rates were so low, so we wanted the stability to know that our interest rate would stay low for the next 5 years and it wouldn't increase. It also means that it wouldn't decrease, but the stability of knowing that it wouldn't increase to an amount that we wouldn't be able to repay each month was what we needed. So that's what we went for, but obviously it's different for every person. The next thing that we did before we put an offer in on a house or even looked at any houses was apply for a mortgage in principle. So a mortgage in principle is a thing where you go onto a mortgage lender's website, you put in all your details like your annual salary, your job, if you've got any dependents, and it gives you an amount that mortgage lender would lend to you. So when you take into consideration the amount on the mortgage in principle as well as how much you saved for a deposit, that can give you how much you can look up to in terms of the property purchase price.
So the second question is what happens once you put an offer in for a house. So obviously you could either get an accepted offer or a declined offer. If it's declined, then you'll have to rethink and either increase your offer, sit on your offer in case they come back to you and say that they'd like to take it because they don't have any interest, or that you could just pull out if you didn't fancy it and go for a different house. But if it is accepted, the first thing that the estate agent might ask for is proof of funds. So they might ask you for identification, so like things like passport, as well as your salary over the last few months. So along with all that, for the proof of funds, it's also the mortgage in principle that we spoke about in the first question. They might ask to see that as well.
Just to see that a mortgage lender would actually lend you a mortgage. Another thing you need to do once your offer has been accepted is appoint a solicitor. So a solicitor is there to do all the conveyancing on your property, so that's local searches to check that no building work's going to happen around your house and to check the land that the property is actually on. So for example, it may be built on a previous mine. One thing we would say about the solicitors is to look around at different prices because solicitors give their own prices. So we went for the cheapest one we found because obviously being first time buyers, we wanted to keep it as cheap as possible. But we found that the solicitor that we went with wasn't that good. So it might be worth spending a bit more money and getting someone who does the work. But you might find that you might spend more money and they still might not do the work, so it's hit and miss really. And the last thing I'd say about your offer being accepted is that the estate agents are there to help you, guide you through the process. So they will give you advice on what you need to be doing, so they'll ask for all your ID and your proof of funds, and they may even offer you their mortgage broker. So we went with a mortgage broker and we basically told them what kind of mortgage we were looking for. So we told them that we wanted a 5-year fixed mortgage and they went and found the best deal for us at the lowest price. So that might be worth looking into.
So the next question is, how long does it take to buy a house? So as you can imagine, this varies quite widely depending on your circumstances, but the average I think in the UK is around 12 weeks. But for us, we wanted quite a quick sale because we wanted to live with each other, and we were told or estimated that we'd be in around 2.5 months after we put the offer in. This was because the seller was actually quite heavily pregnant She was due in January, so we thought we'd be able to get a quick sale as they would want to be into their new house before they had the baby.
They even said that they wanted to be out of the house before Christmas because she wanted to be ready to give birth in January.
Yeah, we basically aimed for mid-December, as we thought they did as well. And Eleanor made quite a few phone calls over the coming months to try and get it all sorted before Christmas. But with what they said was COVID, as well as the surveys not coming up particularly good, and that it also obviously ran over Christmas, so there were 2 or 3 weeks there where the solicitors weren't even open, and also the land deeds as well. There was also an issue with the land deeds. It was
because there was issues with the property that they were buying, which then delayed us as well because we were in a chain and it had a knock-on effect,
which we weren't aware of until basically that issue came to
arose. Yeah.
So yeah, that was that. It ended up being about 3.5 months in the end. Yeah. So basically roughly average time it should take when it was meant to be a quick sale.
And we also found out that the seller gave birth the day after she moved out of the house, so she cut it very fine. The next question we were asked was, how do I choose a mortgage? So this is completely up to preference. You can choose from a different range of years. If you want a fixed rate mortgage, you can choose 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and that basically means that the interest rate won't go up or down. So it gives you the stability of knowing that your monthly repayments won't go up and they won't go down. So that's what we went for. And you can also choose a variable mortgage. So I kind of think of this as like gambling with how much you're going to be paying. So it could go down, but also it could go up and you could be paying more each month. So there are a few things to take into consideration. And one thing I'd say is that you should check that you can actually afford the monthly repayments before you apply for a mortgage.
The next question is, do you need a survey? So technically you don't need a survey, but we would stress that you should get one.
I think anyone would really stress that you should get one, just for the peace of mind, if anything.
So what we found, there were 2 types of surveys you could get. So there was a home buyer's survey, which gave you any risks or any
possible defects with the house. So it tells you kind of what's wrong with it superficially, because when we were looking at different surveys, we found that they didn't look at any like plumbing works or anything like that to check that it worked. So it was kind of all superficial things, like the ceiling on the taps wasn't very good, or there was a bit of a crack in the wall.
And they tell you to the degree of how bad any risks or dangers are. So they tell you whether if it's an urgent matter or if it's just like a little thing that you might want to do but you don't necessarily have to do. As well as highlighting all the issues in the house, they give advice on how they would repair it and how you'd maintain it for future as well. The second survey that we were told about was the structural survey, but they didn't deem that the best one for us. They said to go for the home buyer survey just because the house isn't that old, and it's, I think, particularly tailored for that, so that they can look at the whole structure of the house and see if it needs any maintenance or repairs that could affect the whole house.
We went for a survey done by Legal & General that I'd recommend it. I think it was quite good. It's called the Smarter Survey. Basically, it was like a home buyer survey, but you didn't actually get a full report, like a full written report. You got it through email, and it was a link, and you clicked on the link and it took you to a portal where it gave you all the information on your survey. And it was basically like a home buyer survey, but I think it was quite good because it was a lot quicker because they didn't actually have to fully write out the report, and obviously it was sent by email, so it was kind of, I think we got it back within 2 or 3 days. So I'd definitely recommend that, and it was a bit cheaper than a usual home buyer survey as well.
And quite easy to understand, especially for someone that's never seen a survey on a house before. It was quite good to look at and see what potentially we'd have to work on when we got in the house.
Yeah, and with this specific survey, the surveyor actually took pictures of what she was talking about, so it gave you an idea of what she was actually talking about instead of just random words. So the next question is, when is a completion date decided? So a completion day is the day that you exchange keys and everything is complete as far as the buyers are concerned. Obviously there's a lot of stuff that the solicitor does after completion, but in terms of moving in and getting your keys, that is your completion date. So completion date is decided through talking to the seller of the house, if you're the buyer, talking to the seller of the house, whether that's through the solicitors or whether that's direct. We went through solicitors, but I'd say if you can get the seller's number to talk direct, it'd be a lot easier, because obviously if you're going through solicitors, you have to go to your solicitor, they have to go to their solicitor, and they have to go to their client, so it just adds a lot more time on. So you can do it like that, or you can do it direct, as I just said, and you just discuss when is the best time to complete. So I think a lot of the time it's recommended you complete on a Friday or a Saturday, but I think you can just complete on any kind of day as long as it suits both the buyer and the seller. So you may decide on a completion date, like we decided on the 11th of December, and both us and the sellers agreed this date, and we were both aiming towards this date, but obviously there were complications with their purchase which delayed it an extra month. So it's not set in stone up to when you exchange contracts. So once you've exchanged contracts, you are contracted to complete on a specific day. The sellers can pull out and you can still pull out after exchange of contracts, but you may be penalised for this, so it's advised that you don't do this, really.
So the next question is, what did we look for when we tried to buy a house? So for me, it was to get out of that.
I knew you were gonna say that.
One of the main things was the location of the house. Me and Eleanor both don't drive at the minute, so we needed good transport links to both my work and Eleanor's work, as well as close by amenities like shopping and that kind of thing as well. And as well as that, the actual physical house itself, we didn't really want to do a upper just because we both work, so we didn't really have that much spare time to do up a house. We kind of wanted to go into a house and just it be done, be done ready for us. We just have to do a little bit of decoration just to make it feel like it's ours. But apart from that, that's mainly what we were looking for. And a Belfast thing, apparently.
That was just an added bonus. I think the thing that drew us to this specific house was the kitchen, because it was done so nicely. It's got the wooden countertops and the Belfast sink like you've seen, and there's downlights. I just think it's really nice, and that's what drew us in mainly, I think.
It's not particularly any bigger than any we'd seen, but it just makes it feel bigger just because they've knocked the wall down and put the countertop in as well. When you walk into a house, when you view it, you kind of get the feeling whether you think you could live there or not. And I think when we looked at this house first, we felt this was the first time that we'd actually seen a house and thought, yeah, we could live here for however many years until you would like to move somewhere else.
One more thing that we considered when we looked at houses was the size of the house. So it's just me and Jacob at the moment, but obviously in the future we would like kids. So we wanted a property that was big enough to be able to have kids in and be able to live there instead of moving because there wasn't enough room to have more kids. So we looked at things that we were planning to do in the future and made sure that this house was suitable for them plans, as well as just being a nice house. The last question that we were asked was, what was our biggest difficulty? So for me, it was dealing with the solicitors. I was pulling my hair out for 3 months, contacting my solicitor every day, multiple times a day. The solicitor that we went for wasn't good at communicating with us and telling us what was happening and what was needed from us. We asked on multiple occasions what we were required to provide in terms of documents and if we needed to sign anything and stuff like that. We also asked for timescales of when stuff was happening, and we just didn't get any sort of reply back. And our specific solicitor actually had arguments with me on 2 occasions. She was quite rude. Obviously that's not going to happen with everyone, but that was the biggest difficulty in terms of buying the house for me, just because she made it really hard for me to buy the house.
And for me, it kind of ties in with the solicitor, but it was more to do with the uncertainty of not knowing when we were or weren't going to move in. So pretty much from when we wanted to move in, every week would be a new week where we were told by our solicitor that we'd be able to move in on that Friday, and never materialised for about a month. And when I was living on my own in a house share that I didn't really like, it was kind of a bit demoralising when you found out that it'd be another week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks when I'd have to stay in and live.
Just stay in a place that you didn't really like.
Yeah.
So that was the first time buyers Q&A. We hope it was quite informative from 2 people who've actually been through the process, and we hope you enjoyed it.
Get good solicitors.
That's basically the main thing of this whole video, because that was the biggest struggle. So we hope you enjoy this video, and we'll see you again soon for the next one. Bye.